The colony of Duskfall had always been quiet. Nestled on the fringe of human space, orbiting a dim, rust-colored star, it was more a mining outpost than a world anyone cared about. Its people were miners, engineers, and families eking out a living in the dust of asteroids. The only sounds that usually filled the air were the hum of machines and the laughter of children in the corridors. No one expected war to come here, but war rarely asks permission. The first signs came as shadows on the horizon. Freighters in orbit sent panicked messages. Their scanners had picked up multiple unidentified ships dropping out of slipspace. The transmission cut off mid-sentence, replaced by static. Then the raiders descended. The aliens came like wolves among sheep. Sleek warships, marked with crimson sigils, dove through the atmosphere, bombarding defense turrets, blasting apart hangars, and torching mining rigs. Panic spread through the colony. The militia, little more than miners armed with old rifles, fought bravely, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Governor Lyra Vance stood in the command center, her knuckles white against the console. "Get a signal out," she ordered. "Now! Any channel? Someone has to hear us." "Governor, standard frequencies are jammed," her comms officer stammered. "They're blocking everything." Lyra's mind raced. Then she remembered something. Something buried in old Earth protocols. An ancient emergency band, unused for decades. One reserved for humanity's darkest hour. It wasn't meant for civilian crises. It was meant for one thing. A Deathworlder SOS. "Patch me through to it," she said quietly. The officer's eyes widened. "Governor, that frequency, it'll summon—" "I know," she cut him off. "Do it." The officer swallowed, then nodded. Fingers flew across the console, and with a shrill burst of static, the signal was sent. A simple message, old as humanity's military doctrine: SOS, Deathworlder distress, Duskfall colony under attack. The signal leapt into the void, carried across subspace, encoded in a way no alien system could decipher. It was not a plea. It was not a request. It was a trigger. The raiders never expected resistance. Their leader, a hulking reptilian warlord named Carax, strode across the burning streets in triumph. His armor gleamed as his troops dragged colonists from their homes. "Pathetic humans," he growled. "They thought hiding in the shadows would protect them. The Council coddles them too much. Tonight we remind the galaxy who owns the void." His lieutenants laughed, their voices cruel and sharp. To them, humanity was a nuisance, soft-bodied creatures from a death world who somehow clawed their way into space. To the greater empires, they were tolerated, occasionally mocked, rarely respected. And on this forgotten colony, no one believed help would come. But far away, deep within the armored halls of Dreadnought Command, the signal was received. Alarms blared across Earth's orbital defense stations. Ancient protocols, dormant for decades, roared to life. The message flashed across every command screen in bold red: Deathworlder SOS received. Priority Omega. There was no hesitation, no debate. Humanity's oath was clear. No SOS goes unanswered. Admiral Kieran Holt stood on the bridge of the HNS Valiant, one of Earth's most feared dreadnoughts. His jaw tightened as he read the coordinates. "Set course for Duskfall," he ordered. His voice carried the weight of iron. "And signal the fleet. All available dreadnoughts. Mobilize." Across the system, Titanic ships stirred. Docking clamps released. Engines flared like newborn suns. The void shuddered as humanity's war giants, dreadnoughts longer than cities, bristling with weapons capable of cracking planets, slipped into formation. It wasn't a fleet. It was a storm. Back on Duskfall, the colonists huddled in shelters, praying. Explosions rattled the ground as the raiders tightened their grip. Carax stood before the captured governor, sneering. "No one is coming," he hissed. "Your people are weak. Your council allies abandoned you. You are nothing but prey. Lyra stared back, her voice steady despite the blood on her lip. You don't understand. We sent the signal. Carax laughed, a deep, guttural sound. What signal? No one can hear you. No one cares. But then the sky changed. A deep rumble shook the ground, low at first, then rising into a thunder that made the very air tremble. Every alien soldier looked up. Their warlord's laughter died in his throat. The clouds split apart, and from the void above, the first human dreadnought descended. A leviathan of steel, its hull black as night, its cannons glowing with terrible light. Then another followed, and another, until the heavens were filled with them, dozens upon dozens, each a floating fortress. The people of Duskfall gasped, the raiders froze, and Carax whispered in disbelief, impossible. The fleet had arrived. The Valiant's voice echoed across every frequency. This is Admiral Holt of the Human Dreadnought Fleet. Colony Duskfall, your SOS has been received. Stand by. To the hostile forces, surrender immediately or be annihilated. The raiders panicked. Their ships scrambled to retreat, engines flaring as they tried to escape orbit, but the dreadnoughts were already locking targets. Fire! The void ignited. Railguns thundered, hurling slugs at near-light speed. Plasma lances ripped through alien hulls, vaporizing entire cruisers in a single strike. Missiles streaked across the sky, shattering formations, turning proud raider warships into burning wreckage. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The ground. The alien soldiers tried to flee, but orbital bombardments cut off their escape. Drop pods slammed into the dirt as human marines stormed out, their armor gleaming, their weapons precise. In minutes, the invaders who had terrorized the colony were nothing more than ash and silence. When the dust settled, Governor Lyra stood once more in the command center, watching the dreadnoughts hang in the sky like silent guardians. Tears filled her eyes, not of fear, but of relief. The comm crackled, and Admiral Holt's calm voice filled the room. Duskfall Colony, this is the Valiant. Your distress signal was heard. You are safe now. Lyra closed her eyes, whispering, Thank you. Carax, battered and bound, was dragged before the governor. His pride was gone, his arrogance shattered. He glared at her with burning hatred. You humans, you're monsters, he spat. Lyra looked at him, her voice quiet but unyielding. No, we're Deathworlders, and we never abandon our own. The galaxy would remember Duskfall. They would remember the day a forgotten mining colony sent a silent plea, and an entire fleet of human dreadnoughts stormed forth. For the colonists, it was salvation. For the raiders, it was annihilation. For the galaxy, it was a warning. When humanity answers an SOS, they answer with fire. The Galactic Council chamber glittered with light, its vaulted ceilings decorated with banners of countless star-faring civilizations. Representatives from every known species filled the tiers, their voices rising in a chaotic chorus. The subject of their debate was not war, or peace, or trade, but humans. They are reckless, hissed the scaled ambassador of the Verac Dominion. His tongue flicked in disdain. Deathworlders with no restraint. They stumble into technologies they do not deserve. A chorus of approval rumbled through the chamber. They multiply like vermin, added a tall insectoid from the Zarathi. Combine. The only reason they have a seat in this council is pity. Without our oversight, they would already have destroyed themselves. Murmurs of laughter spread. To the elder races, humanity was a curiosity at best, an accident at worst. A primitive species from a violent world that somehow clawed its way to the stars. Only a few voices spoke otherwise. The Terran delegate, Ambassador Mei-Ling Zhou, rose to respond, her posture calm, but her words sharp. "Mock us if you wish," she said. "But remember this, humanity does not bow to pity. We may not have the longest history among you, but we remember every lesson carved into our bones, and we protect our own." The council erupted in noise once more, some in derision, some in support. But while words echoed in the chamber, far from the core worlds, something darker stirred. On the rim of human space, the colony world of Erebos, Prime burned. A coalition fleet of raiders, pirates armed by shadowy hands, had descended on the planet. Bombardment scorched its surface, cities crumbled, and orbital defenses shattered in hours. Civilians fled into caves and tunnels, their desperate cries drowned by fire. Deep in a bunker, Captain Jonas Rourke of the Planetary Guard sent his last transmission. Standard distress beacons had been jammed, frequencies cut off. Only one option remained, an ancient code buried in humanity's earliest interstellar doctrine. Few remembered it. Fewer still dared to use it. He keyed in the sequence, his fingers trembling as he whispered the words. Deathworlder Code Black, SOS, Erebos Prime under siege. The signal pulsed outward, not like other calls for aid, not polite, not diplomatic. This code was older than the Galactic Council itself. It was humanity's vow, sealed in blood across centuries. When one Deathworlder cried out, the entire species would answer. Back in the council chamber, ambassadors scoffed as the debate dragged on. Until suddenly, silence fell. A notification flickered across the galactic commnet, overriding every ongoing channel. It was stark, simple, undeniable. Humanity has activated Deathworlder Code Black. Shock rippled through the hall. The Zirathi ambassador's mandibles clicked in alarm. Impossible. That code. It was retired centuries ago. No one still honors it. Ambassador Joe stood slowly, her gaze sweeping across the chamber. "Perhaps you forgot," she said. We did not. Across Sol, alarms rang. On Earth's orbital shipyards, titans of war stirred. Dreadnoughts, vast engines of steel and fire, humanity's ultimate weapons, lit their reactors one by one. Docking arms released, and ships the size of mountains began to move. On Luna, carriers deployed swarms of strike craft. On Mars, orbital rail cannons saluted the fleet as it departed. From the outer colonies, reinforcements jumped to rally points. Admiral Serena Kale, commander of the Iron Shield Armada, spoke only 2 words to her crews. Form up. The forgotten code had been spoken. That meant no token force, no half measure. It meant overwhelming response. It meant humanity was coming with fire and steel. Above Erebos Prime, the Raider fleet feasted on the wounded world. Their flagship, Commander, a 4-armed marauder named Zur, laughed as he watched cities crumble. "These humans are weak," he snarled. "The galaxy protects them because they are pets. No one will come." But then the stars themselves began to change. First, one slipspace rift tore open, then another, then a dozen more. The Raiders froze as the void cracked apart, and from those wounds in reality emerged Dreadnoughts, colossal ships, each bristling with rail batteries, plasma lances, and missile silos. Their hulls gleamed with the insignia of Earth. And behind them came more, dozens, then hundreds. It was not a rescue fleet. It was an armada. Admiral Kale's voice thundered across every channel. "This is the Terran Iron Shield Armada. Erebos Prime, your signal was received. Raiders, you stand against humanity. You will not leave alive." Panic gripped the enemy. Their cruisers scrambled, engines roaring as they tried to scatter, but the Dreadnoughts were already in firing formation. Fire. The command was ice cold, and the execution was merciless. Railgun slugs streaked across the void, ripping enemy ships in half. Plasma beams carved through shields, turning vessels into molten wrecks. Missiles detonated in brilliant blossoms of annihilation, scattering debris across orbit. Entire squadrons vanished in seconds. On the ground, colonists huddled in fear until they heard the roar of dropships. Marines in armored exosuits stormed into the tunnels, their voices steady as they guided civilians to safety. For the first time in days, the people of Erebos Prime felt hope. Jur, aboard his flagship, watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. This cannot be, he shrieked. They were primitives. They were supposed to be nothing. A shadow fell over his ship. The dreadnought HNS Resolute loomed close, its guns glowing. Admiral Kale's voice came one last time, cold and final. You attacked a human colony. You invoked the code. Now you learn why the galaxy fears us. The Resolute fired. Zur's ship ceased to exist. Hours later, the battle was over. The Raider fleet had been wiped from existence, their wreckage drifting silently among the stars. Not a single dreadnought had been lost. On the surface, survivors emerged into daylight. Children looked up at the sky, pointing with awe at the vast silhouettes of humanity's guardians hanging above like watchful gods. Captain Rourke, battered but alive, saluted the descending Marines. His voice cracked as he whispered, "They came. By the stars, they really came." Back in the council chamber, the aftermath was chaos. Reports poured in of the scale of the human response, of the sheer number of dreadnoughts deployed. The elder races whispered among themselves in disbelief. The Zirathi ambassador's mandibles clicked nervously. This is madness. They mobilized an entire armada for one colony? Ambassador Joe stood once more, her expression unyielding. We told you. We protect our own. That code you dismissed as primitive, it is our oath. Humanity does not forget. Silence followed. Not mockery, not laughter, only silence. Because now the council understood. When humanity sent dreadnoughts, they did not come to negotiate. They came to end the threat. Erebos Prime would recover. The Raiders would never rise again. But the galaxy would remember the message. Burned into the stars that day. Never ignore a human SOS. For when the forgotten code is spoken, humanity does not answer with words. They answer with an armada of dreadnoughts. The science station Orpheus 9 drifted in the cold orbit of a barren planet. Its crew of 40 researchers lived quiet lives cataloging minerals, studying magnetic storms, and sending back data no one in the core worlds ever cared about. It was a lonely posting, far from trade routes and political games, but for the scientists, it was home. And then the Raiders came. Without warning, a fleet of alien warships burst from slipspace. Sleek frigates and corvettes swarmed like predators, bristling with weapons. Their first volley gutted Orpheus 9's comm array, severing its primary link to Earth. The second volley tore open habitation modules. Fires spread. Atmosphere vented into the void. Dr. Marin Alcott, the station's chief, stumbled through smoke-filled corridors, dragging a wounded colleague. She reached the emergency console and slammed her hand against the keys. The system was crippled, but one last function remained, an ancient beacon buried in humanity's core protocols. The Deathworlder SOS. It wasn't just a distress call. It was an oath, a promise humanity had made to itself when it first rose from its brutal homeworld and reached the stars. No human would ever be left behind. Not in war, not in peace, not ever. The beacon flared. Across subspace, it sent a single message encoded in unbreakable patterns. Deathworlder SOS, Orpheus 9 under attack, immediate assistance required. The Raiders laughed when they detected it. To them, it was desperation. To them, it was meaningless. They did not understand what those words meant to humanity. Light years away, in the vast fleet yards orbiting Jupiter, alarms screamed. Old files unlocked, command consoles turned, red with priority alerts. The forgotten protocols of Earth's war doctrine came alive once more. Admiral Elias Thorne stood on the bridge of the HNS Titan's Wrath, one of the most feared dreadnoughts in the fleet. His officers stared at the transmission, pale but resolute. "Sir," the comms officer whispered, "it's the Deathworlder code." Thorne nodded slowly. His eyes hardened. "Then we answer. Signal the dreadnought wings. All hands prepare for deployment. The oath is invoked." Across the Sol system, Leviathans stirred. Dreadnoughts, massive constructs of steel and fury, ignited. Their engines. Carriers deployed escorts. Cruisers fell into formation. One by one, titans of war left their berths, and the sky around Jupiter burned with reactor light. It wasn't a task force. It wasn't even a fleet. It was an armada. On Orpheus 9, the survivors huddled in sealed compartments, listening to the echoes of enemy weapons pounding the station apart. Alien soldiers stalked the halls, tearing through bulkheads, dragging captives. Away! The commander of the raiders, a scarred insectoid named Koresh, strode through the wreckage with cruel satisfaction. "These humans are fragile," he hissed to his lieutenants. "Their council allies will not come. By the time the core, worlds even notice their screams, this station will be dust." Dr. Alcott, bloodied but unbroken, glared at him when they dragged her into the central atrium. Her voice was steady, defiant. "You don't understand what you've done." Koresh laughed, his mandibles clicking. "I understand perfectly. You are prey, and we are hunters." But even as he spoke, a sound rippled through the heavens above the station. A low vibration, deep and resonant, like thunder rolling across the void. The raiders froze. Every sensor aboard their ships shrieked with warnings. And then the sky tore open. Slipspace ruptured. From the wound in reality, the first dreadnought emerged, its hull black, its silhouette a floating mountain bristling with weapons. Then another, and another, until the void was filled with them. Dozens upon dozens, blotting out the stars. The raiders stared in disbelief. This is impossible," one whispered. The comms lit up with a voice that thundered across every frequency. "This is Admiral Thorne of the Terran Dreadnought Armada. Orpheus 9, your SOS was heard. To the hostile forces, you have 30 seconds to surrender. After that, you will cease to exist." Koresh snarled, refusing to believe. "They won't risk so much for a single station. Fire on them." But as his fleet moved, the dreadnoughts answered, railguns boomed, their slugs ripping through alien cruisers like paper. Plasma lances carved glowing scars across the void, vaporizing entire wings in seconds. Missiles streaked out in swarms, detonating with fireballs that turned ships into molten wreckage. On the ground, alien soldiers scrambled as drop pods slammed. Into the station, human marines spilling out in gleaming armor. Their weapons barked with precision fire, cutting down raiders in brutal efficiency. It wasn't a battle. It was a retribution. Koresh watched in horror as his fleet disintegrated. His bravado crumbled into desperation. "This can't be. No. Empire answers like this. No one throws dreadnoughts for one station." Admiral Thorne's voice came again, colder than the void itself. "You should have learned. Humanity does not abandon its own." The Titan's Wrath fired its main cannon, and Koresh's flagship vanished in a sun-bright explosion. Hours later, silence returned to orbit. The raider fleet was gone, erased from existence. Wreckage drifted, glowing red-hot, as salvage drones picked through the remains. Inside Orpheus 9's shattered halls, survivors were escorted by armored marines. Children clutched at their rescuers, tears turning to relief. Dr. Alcott stood beneath the looming shadow of a dreadnought visible through the viewport, her heart pounding with awe. One of the marines turned to her. "Doctor, the Admiral requests a message be sent. He wants you to be the one to say it," she swallowed, nodding. Her voice carried through the comms, across the fleet, across subspace. "This is Orpheus 9. To all of humanity, we live." The SOS was answered. In the days that followed, the galaxy trembled with the news. The Deathworlder oath, long dismissed, as legend, had been invoked, and humanity had answered with overwhelming force. In the Galactic Council, ambassadors whispered nervously. Many had laughed at Earth, called them reckless, primitive. But now, every race understood. Humans kept their promises, even promises forged in blood centuries ago. A Zirathi delegate muttered, "They mobilized an entire armada for 40 people, Ambassador." Joe, humanity's voice, rose calmly. Her words cut through the chamber like steel. "Not for 40 people, for every human. That is our oath. That is who we are." The chamber fell silent. No one mocked. No one laughed, and far out on the rim, the survivors of Orpheus 9 looked to the stars and remembered the moment when the sky split apart and salvation came not with diplomacy, not with mercy, but with dreadnoughts. For humanity was a death world, species, and their oath was eternal. No human will ever be left behind.